Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emilie, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We didn't see many people paving their own ways like we decided to, so we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we learn from them, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Coast. I am Whitney Popa. I own a communications consultancy in beautiful Edmonds, Washington, and today I am here with Erin, and she is a spiritual, intuitive, magical human and coach, and I'm very intrigued by what she does and the coaching industry. I met her at an event in San Diego a few months ago, and ever since then I've been wanting to talk to her, and then I got an email on behalf of your business, and I was like, oh, Erin, I replied and was like, would you like to be on our podcast? So she is Erin Nicole Coaching, and I'm so excited to talk to her today because she's like an OG coach, and it's just a booming industry right now. So Erin, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you and hear all of your thoughts on the coaching industry, how you came to be. I've done a few of your free sessions too. You do a lot of cool intro stuff, and I learned from that you were going to school to become a counselor originally and then pivoted or something similar to that, right?
Yeah, my background is in higher education. So I have a master's in higher ed. So I worked for a dean of students. I did a lot of crisis response work, supporting students in distress, leadership development. And I was doing that while I was kind of starting my online, at the time, network marketing business.
And talk to us about that, network marketing. I hear that a lot, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I feel like it's a gateway drug for a lot of entrepreneurs. That's how I always describe it. I got started back a long time ago, 2012 is when I joined kind of the online world. Had no idea. It was a lot of just network marketers back then. At least that's all I saw. And I was growing that, and then for a few years while also, being in grad school. And then at about that time in 2015, so flash forward to about 3 years later, I was graduating from grad school. I was going through a lot of burnout. I was competing in figure competitions, bikini competitions. And I was also helping a lot of people, with their health and fitness. And about 2015 and 2016, I saw that people were creating their own coaching programs. And I was like, oh, this is great because this is what I'm already doing for people. I was writing up programs on a Google Doc or whatever and sending it over and filming workout videos. So then I started from there running my own coaching programs. It was a lot of workouts, nutrition. And what I realized was that the core of it was mindset and all the inner work. So about 2017, I was also, since 2009, I've been doing content marketing for different organizations. I ran a lot of the social media, even when I was in undergrad and grad school. So I was always kind of helping people with online content and marketing since 2009. And from there, I was like, oh, I love helping people with the business side. And so I kind of morphed in late 2017, early 2018, from doing health and wellness and inner work to more business inner work. Found a lot of subconscious based modalities and got certified in that. entered into more of the bottom up approach through like somatic experiencing and attachment repair. And that's really been my journey, really looking at how, trauma impacts your business and how it impacts you, and really making sure that you're running a business model that's sustainable based on your values, based on who you are, your energy, and you're not in this constant place of reenactment.
I love that. And I learned so much from your sessions a few months ago just about, I always joke that like on TikTok, I learned that everything's a trauma response. So I'm like, I need to get off TikTok because everything I do is a trauma response, turns out. But what I've noticed too, even with writing for a lot of my clients, and I'm doing a little bit more, I feel like I kind of coach them as I'm writing for them, because so many people were coming to me like, write my bio, but they don't know anything about themselves. So, or they wouldn't like the words that I would use sometimes because they don't know themselves at all. So then I would kind of, I think anybody who's doing kind of writing work, and I do a lot of work for people who they are their business. So it's very heart led. But if you don't know yourself and you're not getting clear on like your values and the things that you're providing for people, and even your own like traumas and how they're going and helping you with work situations, not helping you, but like how they're affecting your work relationships, then I've had a lot of clients where I'm like, I can't help you because you haven't done this foundational work. Or even on the flip side, when I'm trying to support people who they take me out to coffee dates and say, I want to start my business. Should I do it? And I'm always like, yes, that's why you're sitting here with me, right? But there's so much, they're like, I don't know what to offer. Or, there's a lot of value ideas around money and getting paid. And I want to dig in with you on that as well. But what I find the work you're doing is so important because so many people are unaware. And the first step, I think, is like becoming aware. And I don't know how you even get them there, or if you care. You're coming, like people are coming to you like, okay, I have this basic awareness that I need to do some of this foundational work, and that's it. Or are they more aware of like, I'm blocked in some way and I can't get past it? Like, how do you assess like this person is right and ready for me and I can really help them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. And I think if you're listening to this and you're kind of wondering, okay, is it time to dive into some of that inner work? You can usually look at everything like a mirror. So, whatever's happening internally in your body's probably mirroring out in your business. Let's say if you're really riding this like high and low and up and down, it's probably because something internally is happening within you. If you're, a heart-centered entrepreneur and you're running your own brand, you're probably going to see it reflect at some way in your business. Vice versa, whatever's happening in your business is probably internally also happening within you too. It's kind of like a two-way mirror. And I think a lot of times in the industry, it's like, oh yeah, business should be extreme highs and lows. It's a roller coaster. And, while entrepreneurship is definitely a journey, let me tell you, like it should not be super high, super low, up and down, emotions all over the place. Like a lot of times we're just, like I said earlier, kind of in that reenactment. So it's kind of a blend. Sometimes people are at the point where they're like, okay, I've been doing all the strategy, my business is growing, it feels more like it's internal, or I'm noticing when this happens in my business, it completely takes me out. Or when this happens in my business, I go into overdrive mode. It's usually just kind of like little pings that people start to get that there's something deeper. Or they want to, practice holding more. They want to feel safe to hold more, to keep more, to recreate more. And there's usually this like underlying feeling of, the other shoe's going to drop. Is it safe to hold it? Was that one giant launch that I had, just a fluke? Can I keep doing this? Like it's all of those things that are called developmental disappointment, like an attachment trauma. So it's kind of a mix where people come in at and need some support, but usually it's like their body's giving them a signal, or their business is giving them a signal that it's not something they can just like strategize their way out of. They've probably tried that, and now they're like, okay, I got to look inward.
Yeah, I had an experience like to make it a little bit more tangible too, and I'd love if you're comfortable and able to give a few examples or just generally of people that you've helped. But I can tell you from my own experience earlier this year, I was working with a client. They were so aligned. I was so excited. I was following all my human design stuff. They fell into my lap and it was perfect. And they wanted me to write some bios for them. And they had these like really terrible brand guidelines that somebody else had created for them. And so my first step was I went through all of that to try to get out of it what I could parse out for my own benefit. And then I sent it over and they immediately hated it. And I was already stressed out and at my grandparents' house at that time, and what it brought out in me in this like I needed to immediately respond, make it right, fix it, and like escape from the weird energy that was already in my grandparents' house because they're getting older, it's heavy there, and like I have so many childhood experiences there that like I walk into their house and as much as I want to be with them, I'm immediately like triggered in certain ways. And I noticed looking back that like there were multiple layers of things going on both ends, I'm sure, but my like need to respond and have something that I did quote unquote like right in that moment, I didn't realize. And then your stuff came like a few months later. I didn't realize that I was bringing these trauma responses to my business in a way that was like affecting these client relationships and making them kind of muddy. And even they were like, we didn't need you to respond so quickly. We wanted you to like take the time to do it right. And there was like, some miscommunication on both ends. I don't think, again, they're an example too of like people that I don't think knew exactly what they wanted. And I'm actually like, I've had a new offer now because I can sense when people need that foundational work just in their business of like, okay, let's get your mission values out of the way and do like a deep dive session where you really get to know your business, and then we can move on to the bios versus me just trying to figure out what you want. So that's been helpful for my business. But in that instance, I had to realize, oh, this is about me, and I am like bringing some like shit here that I need to work out. And then I was like, oh God, do I need to apologize to them, tell them, give them my whole life history of like, oh, this is why, I like reacted in this crazy way. Like if I had not been in that environment, I wouldn't have reacted so quickly and intensely, but I still would have. And that was something that I needed to figure out and work on for myself, because I realized, oh my God, I'm bringing like my whole life to these relationships. Like you think it's just work and like a money energy exchange, and it is not. Like it is humans interacting with humans and bringing their shit to the table like in every project. And that was like a fast track to me figuring that out. And then I think the retreat in San Diego that I met you at was like a month later.
Yeah. As you share that, kind of what pops up into my mind to give like some examples is there's how I kind of describe it. It's like there's different archetypes in like, let's say coaching, or if you're a service provider, however you run your business. I'm just going to use coaching as an example here. But there's what I like to call the fixer type, where that sounds kind of like what the response that came up for you was, where it was like, okay, I can't be in the discomfort here. I have to fix everything. And I was even talking about this with somebody yesterday. She's like, oh, if, a client's not happy, like, I feel like I got to make sure it's all good. I got to fix it right away. And what you're doing is you're ignoring the discomfort that it brings, the discomfort that it brings. And then the response that then you do after that is usually looped in trauma. It's like, okay, I had to fix everyone growing up. I had to make sure everything was okay. Kind of some of that like codependent, if everybody else is okay, then I'm okay. So there can be a lot of that fixer archetype in people that I see a lot. And it's bypass, like what we're trying to do is it's actually like a really beautiful protection strategy is how I always like to describe it, is that you have these parts of you that are so freaking smart, and they have these protection mechanisms that they've ran for years and years and years and years. So their thought response is like, why would I stop doing the thing that's got me to 30 plus years of life? Because that's how they know to keep you alive and to keep you surviving, is to run whatever that response is. And some, like I said, run more of that fixer response. Some run a little bit more of like a freeze or a fear, where they're kind of like paralyzed and, they can't do anything. And they're like tiptoeing. What if I do it wrong? What if it's not this enough or that enough? And then again, we're cycling in, we're avoiding the discomfort and being with the experience that's here and now. And another archetype I'd say that I see a lot is more of that like positive vibes only of like, I don't want to sit in the discomfort, or if a client's having a really rough experience, I don't know what to do. So I'm just trying to like, get on the other side of it, or reframe something, or have them think of it in a way yes, it's going to serve you somehow. And you're missing the missed experience of just being in like the shit together, just being in those times where there's discomfort. And so I would say, to everybody listening, it's like if you notice yourself wanting to fix it, or maybe wanting to avoid it, or feeling super anxious, or maybe you just want to like not, feel into the emotions and you'd rather just stay up in your head, like what you're avoiding something. And it makes sense because like that's what you had to do as a protection strategy for, again, however old you are, to keep you alive. And you have to begin to work with like the protectors that protect you, so then they feel safe to actually let their guard down, so then you don't have to keep running your life like in this constant loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so spot on. And in my case too, something that was really freeing for me that I had to figure out is what's mine to
Mm-hmm.
hold and what's theirs, whether they know it or not. Because I would, as the person getting paid, I was like, this is on me to make it right and to fix it. So I'm going to just like take all the accountability for everything. Where I was like, wait, this isn't all mine. I don't have to make it their problem, but in my own mind and how I'm responding and dealing with this and what I'm, putting out into the world and holding in my body, I need to understand the accountability on my end and on theirs, because I was actually trained at some of my corporate jobs to like be overly accountable. So anything that went wrong, I was just like, no, that's on me. Like, and sometimes it wasn't. There was no conversation. I was just trained into like, nope, I'm the one accountable. I've got this. I'm the one that like is on the hook for this. And that's not necessarily true, especially when I'm running my own shop and making decisions versus some boss telling me like, you have to make this right, this is yours, blah blah blah. So kind of figuring out all of that along the way, along with whatever is building up childhood wise and keeping me alive. It was a lot last winter, like just even cluing into it at all, because when you're operating like, I think I'm a pretty self-aware person, and then I'm like, oh, you're doing a lot of this stuff on autopilot and not even realizing it. It was kind of a come to Jesus for myself. And that's when I was like, okay. And then I started getting served all sorts of people like you and Mel and everyone around us who are like in various ways healers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, once I realized, and then I'm like, okay, now what do I do with it? But, when the student is ready, the teachers present, and that's always been true for me. So I want to hear a little bit about how, and I know it's always evolving, but like right now, how you are in your business, what the structure looks like, what kind of programs you have. I know you're doing some one-to-ones, because that's the email that I responded to. I was like, this girl, she's like, here, you can have me in your pocket for a month. Here's what it costs. And then you're doing other group programs too. Like, what feels the best to you right now in how you're running your business and helping people?
Yeah. So right now, like what's really been popping up is this big aspect of like community, and how do we really support people in this work, like in the deeper inner work and how it impacts business. So one side of the business is the quantum ripple effect coaching certification, where people get trained and they also go through their own healing journey in a bunch of different modalities: trauma informed life coaching, Reiki, EFT, time techniques, clinical hypnotherapy. We look at all of that through like a trauma informed and inclusive lens. So like that piece, like that's my that's like the thing that is always like so big to my heart, because it's like I truly see the ripple effect. It's like I see how it impacts people that come through, their family, their clients, their business, and just then all of the people that they help and support. It's like I really do see that ripple effect. And something else that's really been important to me too is like in-person connections. I have a couple events I'm speaking at. We're hosting a big live event in February in San Diego, and just like getting in the rooms, getting in the spaces of people that have similar values. I think in the online space we can kind of get like wrapped up and pulled into shiny object syndrome, and then we kind of forget who we are or what's actually important to us, or how to redefine success in a way that actually makes sense for us. And so for me, it's always been, how do I create those spaces? And sometimes, it's like a slower build. Like there's times where like I have to really go inward and say, okay, is this my ego wanting to launch and do something, or is it my heart and my soul and my purpose to launch this? And I'm a projector in human design, and sometimes I have to kind of like sit, and I'm also splenic as well, so I wait for that like little hit that comes through. And that's really how I lead my business. Is is it going to serve people in the best way possible? Is it going to help them build a safe and sustainable business that's in alignment with their nervous system? Am I going to be able to see a ripple effect in the work that we're doing, and does it have a community aspect and focus? And so that's kind of like the different things that we are working on and have upcoming, but it's always viewed through those lens. If you don't have like certain values in your business, and not just values, you're like, oh yeah, these are our business values, and we shove them on a website, like your subconscious mind actually, your values are one of like your top core drivers. So you can ask yourself, okay, well, what's important to me about my business? And let's say it's like freedom, support, and ease. Then you should be looking at everything in your business from that lens of like, okay, does this support freedom, support and ease? Okay, it supports two of them, but it doesn't support this. Okay, like, do I need to switch something with it? Do I need to let this stream of revenue go? It's like you have to like run everything through a filter with who you're hiring, with who is supporting you, whatever that looks like. That was a tangent, but it's just something that I think is really helpful when you're looking at whatever you have upcoming, to use your values as like a filter in which you grow your business.
Yeah, of course. What is like the most comfortable as far as like burnout for you? Because you could be, let's say your soul is leading you to do a bunch of things, but you have to use your own filters of like, what's priority for me right now, and how can I be the best version of myself in supporting these people in like, here's my group coaching container and my few events, and then I'm comfortable taking on like 5 one-to-ones, or what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, I always play with my capacity pretty regularly, because I have burnt out. I've been like, I want to do all these things and I want to like help all these people. And it's like that healer part of us that wants to like help and serve. And so I'm always just looking at, okay, like based on what's upcoming, what is my capacity, and not overriding my capacity just to like make more money. I think people do that a lot, where they're like, oh, I can launch this program because it's going to make me X, amount of dollars. I've actually did the opposite this year, where I said, okay, some of the things that bring in really big streams of revenue, I'm cutting them because I don't have the capacity, and I want to pivot and bring more of this in. And you have to kind of know like the titration back and forth of like how to do that in a right way, how to start adding things on that again is sustainable, and you're not burning yourself out, or like burning all of your revenue streams to the ground if you don't have other reoccurring revenue. So there's nuance in what I'm saying, but I really just feel into it. Like I can feel what I have the capacity to hold, and my body is pretty smart when it comes to anything that starts to push me too much, because I've been through severe burnout, adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, been in and out of the hospital. If I get even like, a little bit more stressed than what I'm used to, my body will very much stop me. The thing is, like, if that's happening to you, you have to learn how to listen to it and then actually follow it and trust it as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to fight the urge to be like, oh, I need you in my program. Not I need you, but like you would be a great fit for my program. And like so many people that you meet when they're like out, especially like at our age, like the elder millennials, they call us, where we're like, we've been conditioned to burn out for other people's benefit. And then we're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Even me with that client last year, I thought, oh, I'm this spiritual person. I'm running my own business. I'm doing what I want. But really, I was bringing those same kind of survival techniques into these relationships and running my business just like a like overbearing boss in a 9 to 5. And I had to take myself out of that to realize that. But then like even me, I want, you know, I support everybody doing what they want to do, but there's so many people that I'm like, I really want you to quit your job and like do this or whatever. I'm not going to push you over the map, but like, hey, if you ever want to have somebody tell you to do it, like I'm here. So I wonder, like, you know, you go to Mel's events, for example, Mel from Reiki Room San Diego, who we had on the podcast last year. You're like, oh, I just want you to be under my wings and you'll find me when you're ready, sort of thing, I guess. But are you ever just like, I would love to have you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm very kind of like a like more silent lighthouse kind of energy where it's like I just kind of like I know, you know, like I'm here, I know, I trust, and I admit what I know that I'm meant to do out here into the world. And if that's for people, great. And if it's not, great. But I also trust like others' divine timing as well, because otherwise, if I'm in a place where I'm like, you know, then that's my ego. That's like, oh, I want to help them. I want to support them. And like, of course I have that like in my heart, but it's like, I have to lean into like the parts of me that don't want to almost go into like that fixer mode too, or the helper mode. And I have to just keep like rooting into trust. It's like, I know that, you know, so many people have incredible gifts. It's like, they also have their timing too. And I'm here in my lighthouse for when people are ready. And I trust that, which, you know, is really interesting, I'd say, like in a marketing perspective, because online you're taught like more so like go after, go after, go after, go after. And I'm like, yeah, I did that for a long time and I burnt out and I got exhausted. And so it's just like continuing to settle into like your truth. Like, what is it that you're here to do? How is it that you're here to support people? And I truly, 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 from like every core of my body, believe if you're so embodied in that, people will feel it. And if you're telling people about your mission and your vision, you're breathing it every single day, you're doing the work around it, people will feel that and they will want to come along and be a part of that. So it's like that self responsibility piece comes in too, to like be the embodiment of your work, which is a gift and also a curse sometimes, because you're like, okay, I really got to be the embodiment of my work when shit's hitting the fan and I'm getting thrown like 100 fucking things at me all day long. So yeah.
How that brings me to the question that's kind of been on my mind too, of like, how do you get support? Who supports you?
Yeah, a lot of people. I do a lot of work. So like right now I'm in like I've had a one-to-one mentor that I see him every single week, like clockwork for the last couple years. He supports me a lot on the energetics. We do very similar work. And he does attachment repair work with me, which is something that I do as well. A lot of energetic work. So I have him. I'm in a really big like mastermind with Chris Harder, who I love, and he supports me more on the business side. Incredible group of humans in there that are always supportive. I'm in a 2-year energy program. I'm in somatic experiencing. I receive a lot of like body based work and coaching and somatic support. So I get a lot of support because I support a lot of people out. So that for me is like support's one of my top values. And so if I am giving that much support, I need to be receiving that much support too. And you know, sometimes it's edgy because I'm working, you know, when we receive from self, we receive from other, we receive from group, and we receive from source. And so you have to kind of work all of those edges, in my opinion, if you're someone that holds other people. And so I have to like constantly, put myself in situations where I'm working my receiving edges and getting that support that I need. And like I said, sometimes it's more edgy because of like the investment or the time into it, or just like the literally feeling of like 100 people holding you is also kind of edgy. So it's like you have to kind of work it in all these pieces. But yeah, it's definitely one of my top values and something that I make a priority to get a lot of.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. Like any healer has to be working with people too in order to be able to heal. And I see you as a healer. I see a lot of coaches as healers. And even for me, I'm like overwhelmed. Like I feel like I just discovered it's like I didn't know Gabby Bernstein until last year. And that's totally like my world type person. I didn't know that she was everybody's guru or whatever. And I think she's great. But I even within coaching and online programs, I didn't know anything about it. And then I have a few coaches whose programs I use now, but it's almost an overwhelming space for me because I'm like, oh wow, there's like this candy shop of options. I don't even know where to begin. So it's this constant, like you've said, like calibrating what works. What do I need right now? Who's presenting themselves and whose program I need right now? And I'm kind of curious, like, now that it's become such an industry and you're somebody who was there from the beginning, how have you thought about, like, your pricing and your programs and taking some of the things you see and leaving the rest, and some of the people who, now that it's become such a thing, there are people who are in it for the wrong reasons, like you said, who are just like, oh, this could make me more money, and just your thoughts on all of it, especially with your own business.
Yeah, there were definitely times where I felt like I bought into a lot of the shiny object syndrome, to be completely honest. Like I was looking for somebody to fix me and save me, and I didn't realize that that's what I was looking for unconsciously. And then I, would go and join things like thinking that it was going to be the thing that changed everything. I had a very like Rapunzel savior complex kind of energy, and I didn't think that consciously, but subconsciously that's what was happening. And so I had to really, in the last couple of years, be like, okay, outside of like all these people that think I should be doing this, should be charging this, have to be running my business this way, I'm like, what do I actually want to do? How do I actually want to run my business? How do I want my brand to look? Like, who am I as a human? What do I stand for? And so I feel like sometimes you have to kind of like you kind of get wrapped up in it to pull back out of it and say, okay, what is actually like aligned for me? And that's where I shifted over the years of pricing. Like I was taught in certain containers that like you always have to be raising your prices, and you always have to, once you get 3 people, then you raise it, and then you raise it, and you raise it, and you raise it, and you raise it. And while I think that that's fine for some people, like I, ask myself, I'm like, okay, what do I actually want to get behind? What feels good for me? What, is stretching me, of course, too, and what is all of that mean in alignment? Do I actually want to run my programs where I do an every few month launch cycle? Do I want my coaching packages to be 3 months? Like what is all the things that we just see and then we take on and do without discernment? And so I developed a lot of boundaries and discernment over the last couple years. And I'll give some examples of some things that I really love that have felt good for me. Like we offer, like in the certification, a lot of scholarships, and that's something that's really important to me is the accessibility. We're moving over into a community-based pricing model, which means like it's sliding scale based on kind of like questions that go from your lived experiences. Uh, I recently moved like all of my like masterminds that I host and my one-to-one coaching where it's basically month to month. Like you're not coming in unless you're coming in and be like, oh, I want to work with you for 6 months. Otherwise, it's like come as long as you want. Leave when you feel like you're complete versus like, oh, you must sign up for 12 months. Are there benefits of, doing that? Yeah, I did that for a long time. I just had to ask myself, I'm like, how many sessions do I want to support people with? How do I want this to look? What is it that I stand for? And then crafting my entire model around that versus just like being inundated with like all the stuff that's out there and then creating my business based off of that. I feel like my best thing that I can say is like, what is your truth? What feels good for you? What's maybe different that you haven't seen, but you've been pulling to do that? And let yourself experiment and play, because you can always go, oh, I did that. I thought that was going to be great. It actually was horrible. Let me switch things back up. But like I'm a 3-5 in human design, so I'm always kind of experimenting with things to see like what lands, and it's a great way just to permission yourself.
Yeah. And what I love hearing from you too, especially with like the money aspect, is the whole like it needs to feel good and stretch me thing. And I am married to a splenic projector who, no, he might be splenic. It's the gut one, but he's a 2-4 like me, and he's really overly rational in some ways. Also, like the male population tends to be, where he's like, do the research and see whatever, what the market value is, and then price yourself like a little bit, like 20% over, or whatever he's gonna say. And I'm like such a it has to feel good in my body person too, that like having the permission for myself when I learned that, oh, people like price themselves based on what feels good in their body. He's like, that completely is not something that resonates. He's a Mr. Business Plan, and I'm like, oh, what feels good in my body? But to that end too, with all the work that you've been doing, like what feels good in your body now probably is a lot different than what felt good in your body when you first started out, or if you were like going through something. Even where that client that I was talking about, it was under $1,000 that I was getting paid for this project, and here I was just like, spending every day pacing around trying to make it perfect and right, which is impossible when I'm not them. And, I'm a human with my own experiences too. And it's words. So it's like, you can't make words perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. They can feel good to somebody else, but me channeling into them and knowing what will feel good is important. And for them to know what would feel good to them, which those things all have to match up. It's so qualitative, all of it, but then you have to assign value to it, which can be hard.
Totally. And I feel like it's pacing over time. And like I think my first sessions were, I don't know, $25 or something. And like that's what I knew. And I was so excited for that. And I think too, as like a good reminder, a lot of people will tie up like their worth into what they're charging. They're like, oh, but I'm worth X amount, so I have to charge this amount. And it's like, it's so much more complex than that. 'Cause you don't want to tie like your internal worth like into what you're charging. I think people preach that a lot, and it's actually like a lot more complex, because like you are, you could charge a bajillion dollars. Like, do you feel energetically ready to put your prices at whatever that is? Or do you need to like kind of build up your brand? Do you need to build up your testimonials? Do you need to kind of just build that up even energetically and capacity wise, versus just like, go in, oh, I'm worth, this, so I'm going to charge this, and then you hear crickets. Like, some people I think kind of will undercharge sometimes, and sometimes that's okay. Like sometimes you got to like kind of work your way up there and feel into it. I think sometimes people take that like, oh, I'm priceless, so I'm gonna charge X amount, and then it's like too far out of their nervous system and they can't get behind it. It's like you got to find this sweet spot of like, okay, you know what, like we were saying earlier, like this stretches me, but I can get behind it, but it's not going to blow my nervous system out. Same thing on like the investment side. It's like, this is something that I always talk to people about when they're getting ready to make an investment. I'm like, okay, is it gonna like, are you gonna have to activate some resources, or is it gonna be a financial detriment to you? And because it's like you don't want to ever put somebody in like a financial detriment where they can't pay their rent. There's obviously a difference between that and knowing how to like activate resources, and also knowing that like everybody doesn't have the same access to resources. And maybe we can go on a whole tangent here, but if you look at different populations, they don't have access to like lines of credit all the time, or able to get certain things. I mean, again, I won't go on like a whole tangent there, but These are all things that are helpful to know, both on like pricing yourself side and the investment side as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've realized about myself too that it's not even money driven. Like I've made decisions in my business where I'm like, okay, I don't want to work with this person, but I want to see if they'll pay this higher price because then maybe I won't resent them. And you can probably intuit how that ends for me because it's always a quick road to resentment, regardless of how much they pay you. So there, like you said too, there's certain values that even when I'm vibe checking with clients, because I still, for my business, I really believe in a discovery call and that vibe check because I need to know, like, are we energetically aligned here? Are you going to try to like hinge on my boundaries, which I'm doing a better job of protecting now, and I need to be around people who have similar lives and schedules and understand like the way that I'm running my business and that I need to right now, so that I'm not like in a mode where I'm constantly testing my own boundaries of like, oh, they're emailing me on vacation and they're paying me X amount, so I shouldn't resent them, but I do. Like the number ends up having little to do with, like you were saying, the values that you hold for your business and for yourself. And I think the work
Mm-hmm.
that you do for people who run any kind of business is so helpful in just how they end up operating out in the world. Like you said, the ripple effect is real because it affects their relationships in every direction. And so the fact that you exist and are doing this work for people is amazing. And I hope more have like that eye-opening experience that I did, where I'm like, oh shit, I have some more work to do. And my thing in the past year has been doing a lot more body work because I realized how much I store in my body. So that's been most of what I've been doing. And then more around like manifestation and things like that, and getting closer and closer to my intuition. Like, even just as a small example, a tangent, yesterday I was driving from an appointment and I was like, I know if I go one more block, I'm going to run into these people that I know and love in town. And I was like, do it, go down this road. And I did. The second and it's not like I knew their schedule or anything, I just intuitively knew. And so many people, like, kind of push that away. And the more that I lean into my intuition, the better my life is, the more magical it is. And then kind of uncovering the layers of what's covering that or making me not want to, I think is part of the work that you do with people, of how they try to deny their body senses and their intuition, and then making that like a super beautiful positive experience for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Like my intuition is very much like I'm splenic. So it's like I get that hit, like I get the hit and I move. I get the hit and I move. And I just trust that over and over and over again. And I think self-trust is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself in life and business, and really working that to like discern when it's, trust versus trauma, and knowing that piece of it and being able to like lead from that place is everything. So yeah, I love your story about just like trusting the intuition and following it.
Mm-hmm. I love when I have those moments to like play with it too, where I'm flexing that trust muscle of it, of like, okay, this is working, and like it makes me believe it in bigger ways. Like, okay, get rid of this client
Mm-hmm.
relationship because you know that energetic field will be filled with something better and more positive. And I like little moments of play that really bring in the big moments. And I think your
Totally.
work is so monumental for people in just giving themselves permission to go there. Like that's, I mean, essentially what they're giving themselves just by hand, like putting that credit card down and saying like, I'm ready, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge step forward for people.
Absolutely.
I have some rapid fires for you. They might not
I
be too
love it. I'm
rapid.
ready.
What are you proudest of in your business right now?
Proudest of, honestly, creating a certification company. It is a lot of work and I love it. And so I'm proud of it
Yeah,
every day.
That's huge. Can you explain a little bit what that entails? Because for me, as like somewhat of a noob, I see like, oh, I can get certified in this. Which one's legit? Which one's not? Like, I'm sure you are, but like, I don't know what that means for people and like what it takes for you to like create a program that people can be certified in.
Yeah, so like on our end, we've created like module after module after module, like to support people in it. Like it has to go through a board to get approved. So there's a lot that we put into it, both on like the continued support and continued education side and on the creation side of it, because our client experience is like the top piece of it. So that's kind of like, I mean, a lot that goes into it on our side. And when people are coming into it, it's also like a commitment for them too, because you're committing to a couple hundred hours of training and learning and going deeper into your craft. So it's kind of this like devotion, like two-way street of devotion to the work is how I see it.
Wow. I didn't know it was a couple hundred hours. That's wild.
Yeah.
But also amazing. Tell us about a book or a podcast you listened to recently that changed the way you're thinking about your life or your business.
Well, it's not like a recent book that I've read, but I read it, like I read aspects of it pretty much every day because it's like the foundation of the work that I do. It's called The Five Personality Patterns by Stephen Kessler, and it's based on the Reich energy types. And you will learn everything about your life and your protection strategies and how you navigate overwhelm from that book. It's how I like when I'm looking at people, I can kind of like track their energy and I can see based on what's coming up in their business, kind of what archetype that they fall into, and then what survival strategies they're running and how to meet them in that, how to support them. So I 10 out of 10 recommend getting that book and kind of figuring out which pieces of the pie, like which pieces of the patterns are your biggest ones. And you can read about the distortion of the pattern and then also the gifts of the pattern too.
Wow. And that's what you were mentioning earlier too with like the fixing and the freezing, or is it different?
Yeah, those were more kind of like my self archetypes that I give to coaching. The five personality patterns is a little bit more like complex pieces of that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to my list. What would your last meal be?
My last meal, probably honestly tacos, chips and salsa, and a margarita for sure.
I mean, my husband and I were just in San Diego last weekend, and I feel like I've been repairing my relationship with San Diego for the past like several years because I keep getting sent there. Like my college boyfriend broke up with me for San Diego, and ever since then I'm like, like fuck this town. And so every time I get sent back there, I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. And I mean, the tacos, the burritos, all of the food in that variety is fantastic there. We went to an awesome fish market in La Jolla that we went back to twice in our 72 hours there. So I'm with you in a very big way. What is the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months under $100?
Oh, under $100. Gosh, that's a good question. Like, what have I bought? Did I get that in the last 6 months? I'm thinking I got one of those like giant whiteboard things. I'm like, let me look on my Amazon purchases and see what I bought. I feel like, did I get that? I probably got that within like last 6 months or a year. Just one of those like giant whiteboards, that you have to like work on. That's like literally the first thing that comes to my mind. But that's I like to like be able to stand and write and teach and do that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that because that's the only thing I can think of.
No, that's amazing, and you're not the first person to mention it.
Really?
Yeah. It seems like
I know. I'm like gonna be going through like my bookkeeping here and be like, what have I bought? Sometimes I don't know. Is that a good or a bad thing?
It's a good thing. It's abundance, right? I recently read that like the definition of abundance is having more than you need for anything. And it's not just about money, and framing it that way was really helpful for me. Like the actual dictionary definition of abundance, I could be butchering it, but people think of it, especially right now, as money, and it's not. It's like, do I have enough energy? I always joke with my husband, like, we're abundant in headbands for our daughter. We're abundant in moles in our yard. Like, just thinking of it as like surrounding you and having more than enough all the time. Like, the moles aren't something we want, but like our daughter, she loves having options for her headbands. So it's great to be abundant in that direction.
That's awesome.
Last question. What is lighting you up lately?
In person. Everything in person is like, it's so exciting and fun to me. I just feel like I've been going to a lot of events. I have a lot of events upcoming. I'm hosting a lot of events. So just anything where I can actually like touch people, be in the room with people, network, and have community is really what's lighting me up lately.
That's been huge for me too. Like, even just being able to go places and see people again and touch them and see their faces. Like, I didn't realize how traumatic it really was for me, and how much, like, I mean, as a collective, we were all holding on to, and just being able to see people, even as a person who considers myself like highly introverted, who loves like to be alone with my cats and a book, like, I want the option of people, and to not have the option
Totally
for a long time, and to feel wrong for wanting that option, or unsafe, or whatever, we all projected onto ourselves. There's a lot of healing there. And I saw that you're doing some events. You mentioned a few of them. Do you want to mention more of what you have going on in person for anybody who's interested and available?
Yeah, so I'm speaking at 2 events coming up. One's at the end of September in North Carolina called Burnout to All Out. I'm speaking at one in Scottsdale in October called Dream Bigger. And then we're hosting an event in San Diego for 200 women in February called The Energetics of Business. So we are very excited. Mel, who you've been speaking about, she'll be speaking there. So we got a really great lineup of people coming.
Cool. Where can people get tickets for that one?
I'll send you the link, because it's like I don't have like it's like Energetics of, if you search like Energetics of Business on my Instagram, it's a pinned post, and
cool.
We have that there too. Yeah.
Awesome. And speaking of that, where can people find you?
Yes, I'm pretty much Erin Nicole Coaching, or the Quantum Ripple Effect, wherever you go. I have a book on Amazon called Burnout to Breakthrough, so that's usually a fun read for people as well. If you kind of like some of this work, that is another place to check some things out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You are I love your whole like silent lighthouse thing. You really are that for people, and I'm so grateful that you're doing the work that you are. So thank you for existing and for telling us more about your business.
You. Yes, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Coast. We will see you next week. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
This episode's music was provided by Sloan Best.
And editing provided by Kayla Shu.